Arik Armstead spoke to the Bay Area media on a Zoom call. And what he did was he said, before I answer questions, I'd like to talk to you guys about something that means a lot to me. And he said that, first of all, he took out his phone and he had an article on it from the New York Times. He said, I read this article last week. I've read it a bunch of times. It means a lot. I just want to tell you guys what I learned from it and what's on my mind. And then you guys can ask me whatever you want. And he was talking all about how he feels that the root of the racial inequality in America stems from educational inequality. And he learned in the article that school districts that are predominantly white get 15% more funding from state and federal from the state and federal government than school districts that don't have predominantly white students, and that there are studies that show that future success in life is really heavily correlated to reading and literacy as a kid. And it seemed very interesting to hear him talk about, also he talked about voting, the importance of voting, but not just for presidents, for your local legislature. And he says it's important. You need to know who the district attorney is, who the mayor is, who the city councilman is. I mean, I kept thinking, I was really impressed, because this is an issue we've been listening to for 4 years with covering the 49ers, starting with Colin Kaepernick. And Kaepernick was brave to start it, but to hear Arik Armstead go into such detail, I feel like what Kaepernick did was raise awareness. And now the next stage is, what are the solutions? And Armstead for like 10 minutes was like, we need to do this, we need to do this, we need to do this. And I thought I really respected how much research and homework he had done and all the passion he has.
Well, let me say, first of all, God love Arik Armstead. I mean, I am so impressed, Iggy. I want to come back a minute to Kaepernick. You said Armstead said it's important to vote.
Kaepernick didn't vote.
He bragged.
He bragged that he didn't vote. And what your point at the time was like, well, what about the local stuff? What about, the propositions, the mayors, the DA? And that's what Armstead was talking about. He's much more informed on this topic than anyone else I've ever heard, any athlete I've ever heard.
And I have not heard that Kaepernick's going to vote in the upcoming election. It's a pretty important election. Now, maybe he is, but he hasn't said he is. And his past performances that he didn't vote. And I would point out again, Black people have died for the right to vote. So I am really with Armstead. And there is one other thing that you had mentioned to me yesterday. Doesn't he read to children? Doesn't he? Please tell.
Yes, he has. He started something this offseason called the Armstead Academic Project. Because like I said, he feels that the root of racial inequality is educational inequality and literacy. And he wants to make reading cool and fun for kids. So he has this foundation, and he goes and reads to kids. They read together, and it must be a thrill for them. So I really, really respect how much he's trying to do to change things. He's not just raising awareness, because we all know awareness has been risen. It's time to take the next step, and he's all over it.
Well, oh boy, Iggy, I've never met him. I am so impressed. Yeah. And what's more, I agree. Mm-hmm. Listen, when you were a little guy, how many nights did we lie in your bed and read the Roald Dahl? I would read the Roald Dahl books to you, or Goodnight Moon, and reading became and your mom's a writer, and reading in our house was breathing.
It was, yes.
It was breathing. You were brought up. We read to you every night, and it does so much. It does bonding, but it also makes you in love with words, and it gives you the tools to be informed.
Also, you encouraged me to be an English major in college as opposed to going into a trade like economics or something like that, just because, again, it gives you the tools to really do anything in life. And you were right. So good for Arik. He's right that it's all about literacy. What he said is like, how are you going to even answer a math problem if you can't read it? It's a good point.
Yeah. I'd like to bring up another point. Again, I don't know him, but from what I understand, just from chatting with you, he's not, when you get him by his locker, he's not the friendliest guy on the team. He sometimes can be a little standoffish, or maybe give you a little blowback.
It's a little salty.
Okay, salty is a good adjective. And again, it just shows how complicated people are.
Exactly. Well, the way I perceive it is, you come up and you say, hey, Arik, I'd like to ask you a question about X. Immediately in his mind, what's he really want to know? What's he really asking about? Because he's very smart, and I guess he's probably doesn't take things at face value. I could see that. So he's thinking, what's your angle? What are you doing? What do you want? And it takes a while to get past that. Because you can see as he's answering questions, he's also thinking about something else. Like, do I trust this guy?
He's sizing you up. He's
Sizing
reading
you up.
the way you're reading him.
Absolutely. And I respect that because not many athletes will do that.
Right. I also want to say I'm impressed he was reading the New York Times.
Me too. I don't read the New York Times. My wife does. He does. He does.
Yeah.
And he has less time than I do. So yeah.
Yeah, he's reading the New York Times.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. When I was in high school in Brooklyn, you had to get a newspaper subscription if you were like in the smart classes, okay? And you had a choice of the New York Times or the New York Herald Tribune, which was a wonderful newspaper. And I got the Times. And when I was in high school, I used to read the New York Times. When I was in college, I didn't, but I did then. I have a New York Times story to tell you.
Okay.
Years and years and years ago, when Abdul-Jabbar was on the Lakers and Magic Johnson and those great teams. Now, when they were in Oakland, teams would no longer stay in Oakland; they would stay in the city. But in the old days, they used to stay at the Hyatt. They got rid of that because it was eventually called the Drug Hyatt. Anyway, they'd stay at the Hyatt, and I was flying somewhere one day, to cover something. And I walked through the Oakland airport, and in one of the boarding areas are the Lakers. I guess they had played the Warriors the night before. All the players, and there's not a lot of players on a team, they're all sitting together, Magic and all of them, and talking, except Abdul-Jabbar. He was way at the other end on his own, and he was reading the New York Times.
Good for him.
Isn't that interesting?
Good for him. Yeah.
He was reading the New York Times. And the reason I know is I saw them. They didn't know who I was. So I walked through just to look at them. And then I walked past Abdul-Jabbar and I saw what he was reading. He was reading the New York Times. And I thought, this is a very interesting man. So Absolutely. That's my New York Times story.
And, he often is a guest columnist. I don't know for the New York Times, but the LA Times a lot. He's very, very thoughtful and a good writer.
And I would say, bringing this back to Armstead, I don't know if they know each other, but if he were told, Abdul-Jabbar, about what Armstead is doing, he would give him a standing ovation.
100% agree. Absolutely.
100% standing ovation. The Niners should be proud they have a guy like that.
They really should. And I had no idea he was like that. I mean, remember in January, I posted a tweet that the Niners should sign Jadeveon Clowney instead of Arik Armstead. And he read it and wrote back 3 or 4 tweets that were he was hurt or angry about it. And I took it personally, oh, he's a jerk. Whatever. I may have reacted the same exact way in his situation, and that really doesn't indicate much about his personality.
Yes. Okay. Yes. So we give a standing ovation to Arik Armstead.
Absolutely.